Raina West didn't care that no one else was dancing. Her heels were off, her curls were wild, and she was spinning barefoot under the golden chandelier like the music was made just for her. Somewhere near the back of the ballroom, Winston Hale couldn't take his eyes off her. It was supposed to be a standard business party, rich people shaking hands, exchanging fake laughs over champagne, the kind of thing Winston had endured his whole life. But then she appeared. Alone. Barefoot. Completely unaware that the most powerful man in the room was watching her like she was the only real thing in it. "Who is she?" Winston asked his assistant without looking away. "No idea," Clara said, glancing down at the guest list on her tablet. "She's not on the list. Probably someone's +1. She's not anyone's anything," Winston muttered under his breath. Raina didn't notice the stares. She was only here because her roommate bailed and left her stuck with an extra party invite. And after 2 glasses of champagne and an hour of watching men in suits talk about hedge funds, she figured, why not dance? It wasn't like anyone would remember her tomorrow. But someone would. Winston stepped away from the wall, his gaze never leaving her. He didn't know what irritated him more, the fact that she was so happy by herself or the tight ache in his chest every time she twirled. He never noticed how loud silence could be until she danced into it. When the music slowed, she finally stopped moving. Her cheeks were flushed, her breathing uneven, and she was smiling like she'd just lived a lifetime in 3 minutes. Winston moved forward. Raina turned, startled to see someone walking toward her. And not just someone. He was tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a tailored black suit that probably cost more than her rent, and looking at her like she was some kind of puzzle he couldn't stop staring at. "Hi," he said. "Hi," she replied, blinking. "Did I do something wrong?" "No. You did something right," he said, voice low, eyes warm. "You danced." Raina laughed, brushing a curl from her face. "I didn't know anyone was watching." "I was," Winston said. "You looked free." She tilted her head, studying him. "And you looked like you haven't danced in a decade." "I haven't," he said. "But if you're offering, I might reconsider." Raina smiled, curious now. "You're not like the others, are you?" "Depends who the others are," he said. "I'm Winston." "Raina," she said. "And I'm guessing Winston doesn't come with a last name?" He hesitated. "Hale." Her brows lifted. "As in Hale Enterprises?" He nodded. "Well," she said, crossing her arms playfully, "that explains the suit." "You're not impressed," he noted. "Should I be?" Winston laughed, and for the first time in what felt like years, it was real. "Can I buy you a drink, Raina? Only if you promise not to talk about stocks, mergers, or whatever it is millionaires talk about at these things." "I promise," he said. "Let's go." The bar on the rooftop felt like a different world. The city lights stretched out like stars below them, and the noise of the ballroom faded into the wind. "You're not what I expected," Winston said, handing her a glass of sparkling water. "I get that a lot," Raina said. "Especially at events I crash." "You crashed the party?" "Technically, no. My roommate was invited." She bailed. "I figured. Free food. Free music. Why not?" Winston grinned. "You're here for the music?" "I'm here for the escape," she said honestly. "It's been a week." He leaned back. "Tell me." Raina hesitated, then shrugged. "Lost my job on Monday. Got rejected from my 3rd audition this month. And my neighbor's cat bit me." Winston laughed. "That's oddly specific. It's been that kind of week." "I'm sorry." She looked at him, surprised by the softness in his voice. "Don't be. Dancing helped," she said, smiling again. "And so does this." "This? You. Not being awful." He laughed again, and she liked the way his laugh made the air feel lighter. "Most people are awful? Most of the ones I meet at events like this," she admitted. "They look right through me." "I didn't," he said, his voice lower now. Raina's chest tightened. She looked away, suddenly aware of how close they were. "I should go," she said, standing. Winston stood too. "Let me walk you out." "You don't have to." "I want to." They walked side by side, quiet now. When they reached the lobby, Raina paused. "I don't usually do this," she said. Do what? Meet handsome millionaires at parties and tell them about my awful week. I don't usually chase women who dance barefoot in ballrooms, he said. She laughed. Guess we're both out of our element. He reached into the inner pocket of his suit and pulled out a small, square card. Call me, if you want to dance again. Or talk. Or just escape. Raina took the card, her fingers brushing his. His touch was warm, steady. Good night, Winston Hale. Good night, Raina West. She walked out into the night, the card pressed into her palm, her heart beating just a little faster. And Winston stood in the lobby watching her go, already knowing one thing for certain. He was going to see her again. The card sat untouched on Raina's dresser for 3 days. She looked at it exactly once the morning after the party, just long enough to confirm she hadn't imagined him. Winston Hale. The name was printed in a sharp serif font, no phone number, just an embossed crest and an email address that made her laugh out loud. Who still used email to flirt? She didn't write. She didn't call. She didn't know what she'd even say. Instead, she threw herself back into job applications, another round of auditions, and waiting tables at the downtown jazz club where the tips were decent if the saxophone player wasn't in a mood. Life didn't pause just because someone unexpectedly fascinating walked into it. But he didn't stay gone. On Friday night, just before closing, she was wiping down a table when the front door opened and in walked a man wearing a slate gray coat and the kind of quiet confidence that made people straighten their posture without realizing it. Raina froze, cloth in hand. You followed me, she said. Winston shrugged out of his coat, hanging it neatly on the stand by the door. You left before I could ask where to find you. I had to get creative. She crossed her arms, not moving. Clara told you. Clara didn't tell me anything. But she mentioned your name once, Raina West. I searched the name, narrowed it down by borough, and found this place through a photo you were tagged in. You're in the background, holding a tray of drinks and rolling your eyes. You internet stalked me. I researched you. There's a difference. She narrowed her eyes. Do you do this often? No, he said, stepping closer. But you didn't call. You didn't give me a phone number. You're right. I'll fix that. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a pen, and wrote it on the back of a folded napkin. Then he slid it across the table like he was making a business offer. She stared at it, then up at him. You know, most people don't show up uninvited at someone's job. Most people are forgettable, Winston said. You're not. Raina blinked, and for a brief second she hated how warm her cheeks felt. You're not here for the music, she said. I'm here for you. There was a pause. The lights were dim. The last customers had cleared out, and the only sounds were the clinking of glasses being washed behind the bar. I work here, she said, which means I can't exactly flirt with you across candlelight. I'm not asking you to, he said. I'm asking you to let me take you somewhere once your shift ends. She raised an eyebrow. Where? Somewhere quiet. You pick. She studied him. You're not used to being told no, are you? I'm not used to people making me wait. Raina exhaled slowly, then pulled off her apron, tossed it behind the bar, and grabbed her coat from the hook. There's a 24-hour diner 3 blocks down. They make terrible coffee and serve pancakes like it's a religion. Perfect, Winston said. Outside, the city was cold and bright. They walked in silence at first, the kind that didn't feel awkward. He didn't rush her. She didn't ask him anything. It was like both of them were waiting for the world to slow down. Inside the diner, the waitress slid them a booth in the corner and poured water without asking. Raina sat across from him, unzipping her coat. You're really doing this? I am. For what? Some girl you saw dance once. Winston leaned forward, elbows on the table. You weren't just dancing. You were in your own world. You didn't care who was watching. That doesn't happen where I come from. And where's that? She asked, drumming her fingers against the table. Boardrooms. Private jets. Places where everything is calculated and rehearsed. She tilted her head. And you think I'm... What? The opposite of that. I think you make me forget I'm supposed to be calculating anything. The waitress returned, set down 2 mugs, and took their order. Raina ordered the pancakes. Winston asked for the same. When they were alone again, she stirred her coffee but didn't drink it. I'm not a project, she said quietly. I'm not a distraction or a challenge or something you get to fix just because you're bored of your boardrooms. Winston's expression shifted, serious now. I don't think you're broken, Raina. And I don't think you know what you want. I do, he said. I want to know why you keep looking away when I look at you like this. Her hands froze on the mug. I'm not used to people noticing, she said. I'm not used to people being real, he replied. They stared at each other for a beat too long. The waitress returned with their food. Pancakes stacked high, butter melting down the sides. Raina picked up her fork, cut a corner, and took a bite. These are terrible, she said. Deliciously terrible, Winston agreed. They ate in silence again, but this time it felt different, like they were building something in the quiet. When the check came, Winston slid a black card across the table. The waitress blinked, nodded, and disappeared. Raina leaned back, eyeing him. You always carry the thing around? It tends to make life easier. And harder to know who actually likes you. He didn't answer right away. That's true. I'm not impressed by money, she said. Good. I'm not trying to impress you. She smiled for the first time in hours. Then what are you trying to do? Convince you to see me again. Raina looked down at her coffee, then back at him. You did that the second you walked into the diner. They stepped outside and stood on the sidewalk, the silence between them thicker now. I'll walk you home, Winston offered. No, she said. You'll call me tomorrow. He smiled, not the kind that demanded anything, but the kind that understood the rules had changed. I will. Raina turned and walked away, her heart beating faster than it had in days. Winston stood there under the buzzing diner sign, watching her until she disappeared around the corner. He didn't know what came next, but for the first time in years, he was ready to find out. The first thing Raina noticed when she stepped into the gallery was how quiet it was. Not the awkward kind of quiet, but the kind that made you instantly aware of your own breathing. The walls were lined with portraits lit from above like they were sacred, and the scent of fresh paint still clung subtly to the air. She turned slowly, taking it all in, then looked over at Winston, who stood beside her in a dark navy coat that somehow made him seem even taller than he already was. You didn't tell me it was a private showing, she said. I didn't tell you a lot of things, he replied, hands in his pockets. You said you liked art, so I asked a friend to open the space after hours. You said you'd call. You didn't say you'd do all this. I had the number, he said, his tone unhurried. Might as well use it to make an impression. She raised an eyebrow and walked toward a canvas framed in gold. It was a portrait of a woman seated in a red velvet chair, her expression unreadable, the brushstrokes deliberately coarse around her eyes. Why this place? She asked, still staring at the painting. I used to come here when I needed to think, he said, before things got loud. She glanced at him. You don't seem like someone who gets overwhelmed. I don't show it, he said. Doesn't mean it doesn't happen. Raina folded her arms. So you bring a girl to a silent gallery instead of dinner? He shook his head once. I didn't want to talk over noise tonight. I wanted to hear you. She turned slowly to face him. And what if I don't want to be heard? Then I'll wait until you do. He said it simply, without demand, and something about that made her chest tighten. She walked along the edge of the gallery, taking in the pieces. Each one was different, some abstract, others painfully precise, but they all carried a kind of stillness that mirrored how she felt when she was dancing alone. I almost didn't come, she said finally. I figured. I've been trying to keep my life on track. And you? She trailed off, not sure how to phrase it. I complicate things, he finished. You shift the gravity. He looked at her then, not like he was trying to understand her, but like he already did. I don't want to throw you off balance, he said. I don't think you can help it. She stopped in front of a piece that looked completely out of place, bold streaks of color layered so thick they seemed to pulse. It was raw and messy and alive. I like this one, she said. I hate that one, Winston admitted. But I keep it here. Why? It reminds me that not everything needs to be refined to matter. Their eyes met, and the silence between them stretched, charged now with something neither of them wanted to name yet. "You're not what I expected," she said. "And what did you expect?" "Cufflinks. Arrogance. Someone who talks more about himself than he listens." He smiled, not the kind that tried to win anything, but the kind people gave only when they meant it. "I've been that man before," he said. "I didn't like who I was." Raina tilted her head slightly. "So who are you now?" "I'm still figuring that out." She stepped closer to the painting, her fingertips hovering just shy of the canvas. "I've been dancing since I was 5, she said. "It used to be just for fun. Then it became my plan. Then my plan fell apart." "You're still dancing." "Not the way I used to." "That night," he said, "you looked like you didn't need a plan. You just needed the music." Raina turned to him. "You think that's enough?" "No," he said. "But it's where everything worth feeling begins." The gallery lights dimmed slightly, automatic timers, she guessed, but the effect was cinematic. The room felt smaller, like the space between them had shrunk along with the light. "I don't know what this is," she said. "It's not a contract," he replied. "It's not a promise. It's not even a plan." "Then what is it?" "It's a moment," he said. "And maybe the start of something real." She exhaled slowly, the air shifting around her like the weight of possibility had finally settled in. "Why me?" she asked. He didn't hesitate. "Because when I look at you, I remember who I wanted to be before success started defining who I was." They stood in silence again, but this time it was full. He reached toward her, not to take her hand, just to offer the space between them, and waited. She didn't move. Not yet. But she didn't step back either. Later, they left the gallery and stepped into the cool night. The city hummed around them, but they walked slowly, as if the world outside hadn't changed while they were inside. Winston didn't fill the space with questions or compliments. He didn't try to impress her with anything. He simply matched her pace. When they reached the street where her apartment stood, she paused. "I'm not inviting you in. I wasn't expecting you to. I can't promise anything. I'm not asking you to." She hesitated, then looked up at him. "I don't know how to do this with someone like you." He leaned in, close enough that she could smell the faint scent of cedar and warmth on his collar. "Then let's not do it like anyone else," he said. "Let's just do it our way." She didn't kiss him, but her hand brushed his as she turned to go, and he let his fingers linger just long enough to know it wasn't by accident. He didn't follow, but he didn't need to, because tonight, for the first time, she hadn't walked away, and that was everything. The storm rolled in just past midnight, thunder cracking above the skyline as the rain began to fall in earnest. From the floor to ceiling windows of Winston's penthouse, the city blurred into streaks of silver and glass. Raina stood barefoot in his living room, watching lightning sketch across the sky, her coat damp and her curls clinging to her shoulders. She shouldn't have come. Not tonight. Not after the week she'd had. But she had. Winston entered behind her, a towel in one hand, a glass of red wine in the other. He didn't speak right away, just set the wine down on the low marble table and handed her the towel. "You didn't have to run," he said. "I didn't," she whispered. "I just didn't want to change my mind." He folded his arms, still dressed in the white shirt from their earlier dinner, sleeves rolled up, collar slightly undone. "You were avoiding me." "I was avoiding myself." He nodded once and walked to the window beside her, his reflection a quiet twin in the glass. "I got the scholarship," she said, voice low. He turned slowly. "You applied." "I didn't tell you." "No, you didn't." She met his gaze. "It's in Florence. 8 months. Full program. Intensive training. I'd leave in 3 weeks." Winston stepped back slightly, jaw tightening, but he didn't interrupt. "I didn't think I'd get it," she continued. "I auditioned on a whim. Recorded it on my phone in the apartment hallway while my roommate was out." "You got in," he said. "I did." He didn't speak. The silence stretched long and taut between them. "I didn't come here to ask you to wait," she said. "I wouldn't," he replied. Because I won't ask you to stay. Raina blinked. I've watched too many people trade what they love for someone else's comfort, he said. And I refuse to be the reason you give up something you didn't think you'd get back. Her voice cracked when she spoke. Why does it feel like I'm losing something either way? Because you are, he said simply. But not forever. She turned, tears burning behind her eyes, and looked around the penthouse, the sleek angles, the subtle warmth, the art that didn't match the furniture. Everything felt suspended in time, like the life of a man who had achieved everything but didn't know what to do with peace once it arrived. I don't want to leave you behind, she said. You're not. You don't know that. I do, he said, because I've waited my whole life for something to feel like it matters. And you do. So if I have to wait 8 months, I will. Raina stepped closer. Winston, no, he said gently. Let me finish. She fell silent. You remind me of the part of me I buried when everything became about money. I don't want to lose that again. But I want you to go. I want you to be brilliant. And when you're ready to come back. If you come back. She reached up, touched his jaw, and pressed her lips to his. It wasn't a desperate kiss. It wasn't goodbye either. It was a promise. The rain intensified behind them, washing the city clean. 2 weeks later, Raina stood at the gate with her passport in hand and a duffel slung over her shoulder. No entourage, no fanfare, just a boarding pass and a heart that ached in the best possible way. Winston wasn't there. She hadn't asked him to be. But when she reached into her coat pocket for her phone, she found a small envelope with her name written in his handwriting. Inside was a photograph. It was the painting she'd liked from the gallery, the one he'd said he hated. But this time something was different. He'd added a single detail in the corner. A silhouette of a woman dancing, barely visible in the chaos of color. On the back, one line was written, "Build something that's yours. I'll be here when you're ready to share it." 8 months passed. Raina danced until her body stopped knowing how to ache. She walked cobbled streets at sunrise, cried through rehearsals, stumbled through broken Italian, and stood in dark studios where mirrors reflected a woman she hadn't met until now. She didn't call him, not once, but she wrote, and he answered. Not every time, but enough. Her final performance came on a rainy evening in early spring. The theater was small, but the applause filled every inch of it. And as the curtain fell, her eyes scanned the crowd. He wasn't there. Of course he wasn't. He'd said he'd wait, but he never said he'd follow. When she landed in New York 2 weeks later, the city was blooming with late spring. She didn't go home. She didn't call a cab. She walked. And when the elevator doors opened to the penthouse, she stepped inside and found him exactly where she'd left him, standing by the window, watching the sky. He turned before she spoke, as if he'd known she would come. You're late, he said. I had to finish something, she said. And now, she walked to him. Now I want to build something else. He didn't ask what. He just kissed her slow, reverent, like the silence between them had finally been filled. I don't need you to stay, he said against her lips. I'm not going anywhere, she replied. He pulled back slightly. You're sure? I danced for the world, she said. Now I want to dance home. Later that summer they hosted a private gala. Not for investors. Not for press. For her. The lights dimmed, and in the center of the room, beneath the crystal chandeliers, Raina danced not alone, not unseen, but surrounded by people who knew her name and what it had taken for her to come back. Winston watched from the edge of the crowd, his expression unreadable until she reached him. She held out a hand. Your turn. I don't dance. You didn't. Once. He hesitated, then took her hand, and they danced. Not because of promises, not because of plans, but because love, when it's real, doesn't ask for perfection. It asks for presence. And he was there. So was she. And for once, that was everything. The late summer air buzzed with warmth as the final rays of golden light slipped like honey over the rooftop garden of Winston's midtown building. Raina stood near the edge, the wind teasing the hem of her pale silk dress, her hand resting lightly on the railing as the city stretched out beneath her. "Tell me the truth," she said without turning around. "You hate parties, don't you?" Winston's voice was quiet behind her. "I tolerate them. But I like this one." She glanced back at him. "Because of the open bar?" "Because of you." He joined her at the edge, his tux jacket discarded somewhere, shirt sleeves rolled to his forearms. There was a casual ease about him tonight, something gentler in the way he stood beside her, not as a man owning the skyline, but as someone finally part of the world he used to watch from behind glass. Raina looked around. The guests were scattered, laughing, sipping champagne, drifting between clusters of string lights and ivy-draped trellises. She recognized some of them gallery owners, dancers from her program, a few of Winston's board members she'd met briefly, but none of them held her attention like the man beside her. "You still don't like being the center of attention," he said. "I'm used to a stage," she said. "But not people asking who designed my dress or how it feels to be with you." He tilted his head. "And how does it feel?" She leaned into his shoulder, her voice barely audible. "Like I finally landed somewhere I didn't know I was falling toward." His hand found hers. "Then stay." "I am." They stood in silence, the kind that didn't need filling. Not anymore. Later that night, when most of the guests had gone and only the soft hum of music remained, Winston took her hand without a word and led her down the spiral staircase into the conservatory below. The space had been transformed. Where there was once polished marble and cold symmetry, now there were warm lights strung across the ceiling, vines curling around beams, and a grand piano in the corner, its lid open as if waiting for a song. Raina's eyes widened. "You did this?" Winston nodded. "I wanted to show you something. I didn't know how until now." She walked slowly through the room, fingers grazing the leaves, her breath catching slightly. "It feels alive in here." "It wasn't before," he said. "It was just another room. I didn't know what to do with it." She turned to face him. "And now, I want it to be a place we create from. Together. You said once you didn't know how to do this with someone like me. I didn't know how either. But I know now what it means." Raina stepped closer. "What does it mean?" "That I don't want a version of you that fits somewhere in my life. I want a life that fits around you." Her eyes filled, but she didn't cry. Not this time. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, flat box. No fanfare. No crowd. Just the two of them. She stared at it. "I didn't buy a ring because it was time," he said, opening the box to reveal a delicate band with a single sapphire set beside a diamond. "I bought it the day after you left for Florence. Because I knew the only way I'd ever feel whole again was if I built something with you." Raina didn't move. "I'm not asking you to stop dancing," he said. "I'm asking you to let me be there when the music changes." She stepped forward, breathless. "I don't need to think about it." "You don't." "I already did," she whispered. "Every night I wasn't here." He slid the ring onto her finger slowly, reverently, as if he already knew every promise was something they'd already lived. Then he kissed her, not to seal anything, but because it had always been the only answer. They didn't return to the rooftop. Instead, they stayed in the conservatory, barefoot and tangled on the rug beneath the piano bench, talking until the sun crept in through the glass ceiling. They spoke about the small things, the color of the walls of the dance studio she wanted to open, the recipe his grandmother passed down that he still hadn't learned, the names of the trees she wanted to plant outside the city once they were ready. Raina fell asleep with her head on his chest, his arms wrapped around her like he never planned to let go. And he didn't. Not in the days that followed when she started teaching classes in a borrowed studio space downtown. Not when they bought a brownstone in Brooklyn with creaky floors and a garden that needed work. Not when she choreographed her first public show and insisted on using a local cast instead of professionals. Not even when he stepped back from 3 of his companies to focus on building a foundation that gave scholarships to dancers like her. They didn't rush the wedding. They didn't need to. It was small. In the garden. Just before dusk, with music played on a violin by a friend from Florence. Her dress was simple, her hair loose. Winston wore no tie. He didn't need one. When the vows were said and the last toast had been made, they danced barefoot, just like the first time. And as the stars blinked above them and the world quieted down, Raina leaned into him, her cheek against his chest. "You remember the night you found me in the diner?" she asked. "I remember everything. I never told you what I was thinking." He looked down at her. "What were you thinking?" "That if I let you in, I'd never be the same. You were right. And I don't want to be." He kissed her again, and the guests faded, the music slowed, and time folded neatly around them. They didn't need to chase more. They had each other, and that was more than enough.